So tertiary sector is that sector which is going to enhance your primary sector and secondary sector. So again seva rangam ante adi. So this is tertiary sector, primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. Until 10th class we might have studied, but recently there are two more sectors that were added to this subject, and that is known as quaternary sector and quinary sector. Right, here and there you will be finding this. So basically sectors are classified into three. Rangalu ennu untayante primary, secondary, tertiary. Primary agricultural sector అని చదువుతాం మనం దీన్ని, మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ సెక్టర్ ఆర్ ఇండస్ట్రియల్ సెక్టర్ అని చదువుతాం. టెరిషరీ సెక్టర్ ఏమంటామంటే సర్వీస్ సెక్టర్ అనేసి అంటాము. ఐటీ, బ్యాంకింగ్, కమ్యూనికేషన్, infrastructural development, all these are service sectors. Now after this, in the modern day economics, two more terms has come here. చిన్నప్పుడు చదివిందాం మనం ఇది. నేను కూడా మన యూపీఎస్సీ ప్రిపేర్ అయ్యేంత వరకు I didn't come across this. This is called quaternary sector, and the last one is quinary sector. Quinary, quaternary and quinary. Now what is quaternary sector? Now if this is depending on something called, if your economy is depending something on IPR rights, intellectual property rights. Economy anedi intellectual quaternary economy. When you call that economy as quaternary economy, if your economy is dependent on intellectual property rights of individuals, then that is called quaternary economy antam. IPRs ante entivi? ఇంటలెక్చువల్ ప్రాపర్టీ రైట్స్. మన మేధస్సుకు సంబంధించి మేధో సంపత్తిని ఉపయోగించి మీరు ఏదైనా హక్కుల్ని తయారు చేసుకుంటుంటే ఆ హక్కుల్ని కాపాడుకోవడమే ఏమంటాము, ఇంటలెక్చువల్ ప్రాపర్టీ రైట్స్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ కోవిడ్ వ్యాక్సిన్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్, రైట్? ఎవరో సైంటిస్ట్ ఎక్కడో ల్యాబొరేటరీలో కూర్చొని ఆ కోవిడ్ వ్యాక్సిన్ అనేది కనిపెట్టారు, అది ఆయన కనిపెట్టాడు. సో హీ హ్యాస్ ఇన్వెంటెడ్ దట్. Because of his invention, he will be having the authority to charge that. నేను ఇన్వెంట్ చేశాను కాబట్టి నాకు అథారిటీ ఉంటుంది ఎంత డబ్బులు పెట్టి అమ్మాలి అనేసి. రైట్ నౌ యాజ్ హీ ఈజ్ సెల్లింగ్ దట్ at a cost, now that is going to get him revenue. At the same time he have to pay taxes, and the economy is depending on his intellectual property rights. Right, if your economy is dependent on IPR, IPRs ఏమవ్వచ్చు, కాపీ రైట్స్ అవ్వచ్చు, పేటెంట్స్ అవ్వచ్చు, ట్రేడ్ మార్క్స్ అవ్వచ్చు, రైట్, ఏమైనా అవ్వచ్చు. What are those things? I'll discuss at a later stage. What is the difference between each and everything? We'll discuss at some point of time. But remember, IPR rights. If your economy is depending on IPRs, intellectual property, మన మేధస్సును ఉపయోగించి ఎకానమీని రన్ చేస్తుంటే దాన్ని ఏమంటారంటే క్వటేనరీ ఎకానమీ అండి. జస్ట్ రిమెంబర్, ఐపీఆర్ రైట్స్ గురించి సంబంధించిన ఎకానమీ ఏదైనా సరే క్వటేనరీ ఎకానమీ. Now again, this is a very modern concept. Only after WTO was established in 1995, this has come into picture. Earlier this was not present. Indu present ledu ante, let us take example of India. India lo emundi, for example, let us take the class that I am taking. Now I said this is something called, I am going to charge this. Why I am charging this? I am charging to explain the knowledge that I have gained. Right, now whatever the amount that you are going to pay me, you are paying it for my intellectual brain, the content that I am taking from my brain. As this is happening, this is called quaternary economy. Now I will decide what is the price that I have to keep, or my team will decide how much price we have to keep for this. Right, why? This is dependent on intellectual. If you take the same concept much before 1995, ముందు ఎలా ఉండేది, మన ప్రాచీన కాలంలో విద్యను ఎవరు అమ్ముకునేవాళ్ళు కాదు. రైట్, no one used to sell education. Education is available for free. You will go to something called Varnashrama Dharma Prakaram. We will go to some forest. We will take ashrama with some guru. We will pay some guru dakshina for that in the form of some service, and then we will take our knowledge. Earlier, knowledge was not considered as a monetary tool, but today in the competitive field, quaternary economy is gaining traction. ఎందుకు WTO పెట్టిన తర్వాత ఏదైతే మనం కొత్తగా తయారు చేస్తున్నామో దాని ప్రతి ఒక్కరు దే స్టార్టెడ్ ఛార్జింగ్ ఇట్. యాజ్ ఎ రిజల్ట్ టుడే ఎకానమీ, నాలెడ్జ్ ఈజ్ గోయింగ్ టు బి నాట్ ఫర్ ఫ్రీ. నాలెడ్జ్ ఎవరు ఫ్రీగా డిస్ట్రిబ్యూట్ చేయరు. దట్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ఎకానమీ ఇస్ కాల్డ్ క్వటేనరీ ఎకానమీ. లుక్ అట్ దిస్. ఏ నాలెడ్జ్ అయినా సరే, రైట్, ఎవ్రీథింగ్ దే విల్ చార్జ్ సమ్ అమౌంట్. So that type of economy is called quaternary economy. Again, this has a very new concept. 1990 తర్వాతే ఈ ఐపీఆర్సీబీ ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతాం జరిగింది. ఇండియాలో దిస్ కాన్సెప్ట్ హ్యాస్ కమ్ వే బ్యాక్ ఇన్ 2016 or 2015. 2015 నుంచి we started focusing much on this IPR. Otherwise, we didn't give much focus to this. The last one is quaternary economy. So, సింపుల్గా క్వశ్చన్ ఏమడుగుతారు, విచ్ ఆఫ్ ద ఫాలోయింగ్ ఈజ్ ఏ క్వటర్నరీ ఎకానమీ అంటే ఐపీఆర్స్కి సంబంధించింది ఏమున్నా కూడా క్వటర్నరీ ఎకానమీ అవుతుంది, అది మాత్రం గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి. రైట్. నెక్స్ట్ లాస్ట్ వన్ ఈజ్ క్వీనరీ ఎకానమీ. What is this quaternary economy? Quaternary economy is something which is about decision making. White collar jobs ఉంటాయి, decision making authority. Say for example, if I have an academy, in my team there will be some people who will be the decision makers. There will be some HR team, human resource management, there will be some managing directors of the company. So these people will be determining how we should progress. So that type of decision making authorities are known as quaternary economy. So quaternary economy directly, most probably they won't ask this question, they will ask only in some mock tests that you are going to write. So quaternary economy is decision making economy. Quaternary economy is IPR's economy. Just remember that, nothing more relevant. But they will ask question on primary sector, secondary sector or tertiary sector. Hope you understood this. Last year in APPSC they asked water service is which type of economy. Something they asked like this, right? Day before yesterday we have seen. No. After that. Right. Now this is the prelims component here. I want to explain this for the mains. Now look. Any economy, if it has to progress, it has to progress in a very linear fashion. First it has to get self-sufficiency in the primary sector, then it has to go to the secondary sector, then it has to go to the tertiary sector, and then it will enter into the quaternary sector and quaternary sector. So normally any economy, in order to progress, it has to progress in a linear fashion. From primary it has to reach secondary, from secondary it has to reach the tertiary, to quaternary and quaternary. Now why there should be linear fashion? Look at advanced countries, developed economies అనేసి అంటుంటాం, right? America is a developed economy, Europe is a developed economy, India is a developing economy, Africa is a underdeveloped economy. Now why, how you differentiate economies on this basis? Now look at this. Any economy, whether that is developed economy, developing economy or underdeveloped economy, if it has to become an advanced economy, ఒక అడ్వాన్స్డ్ స్టేజ్లోకి వెళ్ళాలి అంటే ఇట్ హ్యాస్ టు గెట్ సెల్ఫ్ సఫిషియన్సీ ఇన్ ప్రైమరీ అండ్ దెన్ ఇట్ విల్ రీచ్ టు సెకండరీ. సో ద ప్రాసెస్ ఇస్, ఫస్ట్ it has to start here, slowly it has to reach to this position. Why it has to go in this process and what happens if you are not going in this process, that we have to understand. A very good discussion for mains. Now let us imagine this. Now there is one primary sector, like agriculture is a primary sector, industries is secondary sector, IT is tertiary sector. Imagine this, any economy will start at agriculture itself or the so-called ఏ ఎకానమీ అయినా తీసుకోండి, ఈ రోజు ఉండే ఏ ఎకానమీ అయినా, అడ్వాన్స్డ్ ఎకానమీ అయినా తీసుకోండి, అండర్ డెవలప్డ్ ఎకానమీ అయినా తీసుకోండి, డెవలపింగ్ ఎకానమీ అయినా తీసుకోండి, ఏ ఎకానమీ అయినా సరే, ఏ దేశం అయినా సరే ఫస్ట్ ఎక్కడ స్టార్ట్ చేస్తారు అంటే దే స్టార్టెడ్ దిస్. వై? లుక్ అట్ హ్యూమన్ డెవలప్మెంట్. వీ స్టార్టెడ్ అట్ హంటింగ్ ఈజ్ ప్రైమరీ సెక్టర్. Indian agriculture, India is an agricultural economy. We started at agriculture, which means the primary sector is this. Africa, again hunting, mining, these things. So any economy has to start at this, which means all the people who are present in an area, they will be looking at the nature and their work will be depending on the nature. Right? They are getting employed here and they will be working on this. Slowly, people will be working. After few days or few years, after millions of years, they will realize that, okay, this is how I have to produce some fruits, I have to produce some grains, and they will be learning the skill. Over a period of time, what happens is, as people are engaged, everyone is engaged in this sector, they will start focusing on more production will be increased. Now they will be thinking how to store them. Earlier when they were producing, it was sufficient just to meet their demands for that day or for that year. But over a period of time, as people are working on this land for millions of years, they will understand the science in it. They will understand how we have to produce, because agriculture is a science. Now they will produce it, and what happens is they will get self-sufficiency in that sector. What do I mean by self-sufficiency? Whatever the things that they have produced, that will be more than enough to meet their requirements. Now there will be excess production. Now, if this excess production is there, they think about how can I transform a particular product into another product. They start thinking about another thing. That is, I have to transform grains into flour. Right? Transforming grains into flour. I said this is industries. Right? Now, unless and until there is no excessive production, people won't concentrate on the next level. మన డిమాండ్స్ మీట్ అయ్యేంత వరకు మనం ఆ స్థాయిలోనే ఉంటాం. మనకి ఎప్పుడైతే మన డిమాండ్ మీట్ అవుతుందో వి విల్ గో ఫర్ హయ్యర్ ఆబ్జెక్టివ్. రైట్, దిస్ ఇస్ హ్యూమన్ టెండెన్సీ. క్రియేటివిటీ ఎప్పుడు వస్తుంది? బేసిక్ రీసోర్సెస్ అయిపోయిన తర్వాత దెన్ విల్ బి థింకింగ్ నాకు కావాల్సిన డబ్బులు వచ్చింది, దెన్ ఐ విల్ బి థింకింగ్ ఓకే ఐ విల్ బి గోయింగ్ ఫర్ లాంచింగ్ మై ఓన్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్. Why? Until and unless you meet a basic requirement, you won't be concentrating on the next requirement. This is how humans evolve, right? So creativity comes when humans are self-sufficient. That is the basic thing. So once you are producing enough, now people who are producing, they will be thinking about something called how can I go and how can I transform. So that they will give rise to creativity, and that is how in the Western world there was good agricultural lands. They started producing enough. Now they started industrializing their lands. They started about thinking, and that thinking has risen or gave rise to Renaissance, right? And that Renaissance has led to industrialization. Now slowly people will be transforming that. Industries సంబంధించినటువంటి క్రియేట్ చేస్తారు, కనుక్కుంటారు, దాని ద్వారా they will be transforming this. As a result, slowly people who are self-sufficient here, they will be getting into the next sector, that is called industrial sector, and they will be progressing in this line. ఎవరైతే ఇక్కడ సెల్ఫ్ సఫిషియెంట్గా బాగా ప్రొడ్యూస్ చేశారో వారు నెక్స్ట్ స్టేజ్లోకి రీచ్ అవుతారు. హియర్ ఆల్సో దే విల్ స్టార్ట్ అట్ ఏ బేసిక్ లెవెల్, అండ్ slowly దే విల్ come to the highest position. Now I know how to produce wheat, I know how to produce flour. Now what I will be thinking is, after getting enough experience on production of transforming this, I will be thinking how can I reduce my workload. నేనే అంతా కష్టపడి చేయాలా, how can I reduce it? That will be the next part. As a result, people will be thinking, is there any source that I can have an external hand? Then they will be thinking, okay, let me introduce some robots, that is called machines. Let me not operate the machines, let me introduce computers. Computers themselves will be operating that machine, so that I will be free, my work will be reduced. Which means once you gain enough in industrial sector, slowly you reach to tertiary sector. Look at all the developing countries. They started at self-sufficiency in primary sector. By 1550 AD, 1550 సంవత్సరానికి వచ్చే లోపల they were very self-sufficient in agricultural production. Now they started about industries. By 1900 or 1960s, they were very self-sufficient in industries. స్లోగా ఏం స్టార్ట్ అయింది? కంప్యూటరైజేషన్, ఇండస్ట్రీ, ఐటీ అనేది రిఫార్మ్ అవుతూ వచ్చాయి. Right. Now, when did computers evolve? Computers evolved way back in 1970s and 1980s with the discovery of computers by Charles Babbage. Right. So, which means after going to that stage, now we started thinking about the next thing, that is called computers. And then once the computers are evolved, people will be thinking it, and then labor will be reduced. Physically, మనం చేయాల్సిన శ్రమ తగ్గుతుంది. We will give more to our brain. The moment we have relaxation, our brain starts thinking about various activities. That activities gives rise to the so-called mental thinking. Akkada IPR rights అనేటివి క్రియేట్ అవుతూ వస్తాయి. Finally, once you gain knowledge on these things, you will be very good decision maker. ఎక్కడ ఏ డెసిషన్ తీసుకుంటే ఏ యాక్టివిటీ గ్రో అవుతుందనేసి మీకు నాలెడ్జ్ ఉంటుంది. What do I mean by this? By the time you reach decision making, you will be having a good knowledge on production, industries, IT sector, IPR rights. Once you know knowledge about all these things, now you will be the controller. You will be the best decision maker. Why? You have seen agricultural production sufficiency. Now, if something is getting reduced in agriculture, you will know how to increase it. If industries are not performing properly, you know how to increase the production of industries. Same thing will be for tertiary sector. Now you will be an expert in that. That is why this is quaternary sector. Decision making is such an important thing. Look at Corona again. During COVID-19, we did not have enough number of decision makers. Right? Sudden lockdown implement chesam, lockdown eppudu teeseyali em katha anedi teliyaledu because we are facing that problem for the first time. So there was no decision making. But had we have a good decision making people, we should have avoided at least some inconvenience that has been created by the COVID-19. So what do I mean to say by this is, if your economy has to progress, again, listen to the terms that I am using. If your economy has to progress, it will progress in a linear fashion. Agriculture, self-sufficiency in this, go for industries, self-sufficiency in this, go for service sector, self-sufficiency in this, go for quaternary and quaternary sector. Now look at all the advanced economies. Britain, US, right? All the European countries. They are called as advanced economies. Why you call them advanced economies? They have self-sufficiency. తినడానికి తిండి ఉంది, right? తాగడానికి నీరు ఉంది, అన్నీ ఉన్నాయి. So they don't worry about primary thing, secondary thing, tertiary thing. They will be focusing on research and development. Why? Research and development చేస్తే కొత్తగా కనుక్కుంటే డబ్బులు ఎక్కువ వస్తాయి, మనకి ఎక్కువ డబ్బులు కనుక్కోవచ్చు మనం, right? So these things. So any economy which is going to progress, it has to go in a linear fashion. Now what is the advantage of growing by this fashion? You will have enough resources on one hand, and the second advantage that you are going to have because of this linear fashion of growth is, the second advantage that you are going to have is, now look at this. I said in the primary sector, all the people who are depending, who can work, they are going to get employment here. ప్రతి ఒక్కడు ఎంప్లాయ్మెంట్ అవ్వగలడు. ఎందుకు? దీనికి పెద్ద స్కిల్ అవసరం లేదు. నలుగురితో పాటు పోతే ఒకరోజు కాకపోతే 2 రోజుల్లో నేను నేర్చుకుంటాను, రైట్? కలుపు ఎలా తీసేయాలి, మొక్కలు ఎలా నాటాలి, దట్ వీ కెన్ లెర్న్. విచ్ మీన్స్ ఇట్ డజంట్ రిక్వైర్ హై స్కిల్ అండ్ దిస్ కెన్ అకామిడేట్ ఎనీ టైప్ ఆఫ్ వర్కర్. మీకు వర్క్ లేదు అనుకోకుండా వర్క్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. Now, at one point of time, you will reach a stage that here there will be no vacancy. There is more number of people, land is limited. As a result, everyone who is engaged in agriculture, they will be producing, there will be laborers, but there will be more number of laborers, but we will not have enough jobs. There will be a problem. But if there are some people who is going from agriculture to the industries, right? I said they will be having good knowledge. Now they will leave agriculture and they will go to the industries. Because of leaving this sector, why they will go to the industries? This is semi-skilled. It requires some skill. This is not like directly coming and going here, right? You should know how a machine works, right? So semi-skilled people will enter into this, and the unskilled people, now because of entering into this, there will be some vacancies. Now the new people will be coming and occupying this position, which means whatever the production is there, production in the sense people, right? As population increases, there will be more vacancies and there will be self-work. Work అనేది ఇక్కడ వస్తుంది, irrespective of the skill. Skill లేదు అనుకోకుండా కూడా, no skill ఉన్నా కూడా you will have work. Now semi-skilled people. In this semi-skilled people, again some talented people, some high-skilled people, they enter into tertiary sector. Here it creates vacancies again because of these people, and those who have got new talent, now they will reach here. Again vacancies will be here. Again new people will be coming here. Now when you go for the quaternary sector, again people are going to move from this sector to this is highly skilled people, right? If you want to work in R&D teams, you should have high skill. So highest skill is required here. Then you will be reaching to the highest skill level. As a result, in the bottom level there will be vacancies, and there will be a structural way of going to the employment. What do I mean by this? Now the vacancies that are created in the agriculture sector, industrial sector, service sector, your quaternary sector and quaternary sector, as people are moving from one position to other position depending upon the skill, low skill or least skill is required here, semi skill is required here, high skill is required here, highest skill is required in these two domains. As people are moving as per their skill, vacancies will be created and your population will have employment. ఎవరు నిరుద్యోగులు అనే కాన్సెప్ట్ ఉండదు. How you'll find employment is, you'll find employment when an economy is progressing smoothly from one sector to other sector. So the first basics of economics, అసలు నిరుద్యోగ సమస్య ఉండకూడదు అంటే you should have linear fashion of growth. Understood? Why? Depending upon the population. Now this population may be skilled or unskilled or semi-skilled or highly skilled. Depending upon their skill, if there is vacancy, they will go directly to that position and they will occupy. Every year graduates will be coming. Every year workforce is coming. Now if you want to provide them job, how you can provide them job? You can provide them under only one context. You should have minimum number of vacancies. Otherwise students will be coming out of colleges. This thing will be fused. This will be already occupied. There will be no vacancies. As a result, unemployment starts rising. So one biggest problem of unemployment that no one will understand is this linear fashion of growth. Look at Germany. Why Germany is called an industrialized economy? మన ప్రజలు కూడా వెళ్ళేసి జర్మనీలో ఇండస్ట్రీస్లో వర్క్ చేస్తుంటారు. Look at the cars that are coming from Germany. Why? It has self-sufficiency in agriculture. Now it has developed industries to a very maximum extent. That is the reason why it creates employment opportunities. Right? So unemployment basically is from this lack of linear fashion of growth. That is first thing. Now when there is unemployment, whenever people are getting employed, obviously employment ఉంటే ఏమవుతుంది, డబ్బులు వస్తాయి. రైట్? డబ్బు ఉంటే ప్రపంచం ఏలొచ్చు. రైట్? Now what does that I mean by that? So there will be no poverty. So nirudyogam, unemployment is the basic reason for daridryam, poverty. Unemployment is the basic reason for poverty. Now if you are having employment, there will be no poverty. Now understand this. In UPSC as well as APPSC, there is one topic called unemployment and poverty. How they are linked? They are intrinsically linked. They are linked. అవినాభావ సంబంధం ఉంది వీటికి. రైట్? నౌ అన్ఎంప్లాయ్మెంట్ ఉంటే పావర్టీ ఉంటుంది, పూర్గా ఉంటే ఇంకెప్పుడు అన్ఎంప్లాయ్గానే ఉంటాం. ఇది ఒక విషియస్ సైకిల్. రైట్? నౌ why this is happening? This is happening because your sectors of economy is not proper. Let us take the beautiful example of our country itself. Now India, at the time of independence, let us take at the time of independence. Until independence or until the arrival of the British, we do not have industries to that extent. Right? We are totally a primary sector. Right? Look at the time of Mughals also. Even during the times of Mughals, we are more or less an agricultural economy. We do not have industries. So industries is something which is very new, which has been imported from the so-called Britishers. Unfortunately, the Britishers didn't bring all the industries to India. That is another story. But until the times of Mughals, we have an agrarian economy, which is a primary sector economy. Now, the Britishers has come here and there. They have opened their industries, that too for their own benefit, right? But not for our Indian benefit. Nonetheless, we have been introduced. Our Indians started tasting the industrialization slowly. By the time of 1947, in India, your agriculture sector and industrial sector was at a very nascent stage. Why? Because of the poor policies that this fellows has made. బ్రిటిషర్స్ చేసినటువంటి దరిద్రమైనటువంటి పాలసీస్ వల్ల ఒక రకంగా వ్యవసాయము దెబ్బతిన్నది, ఇంకొక రకంగా మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ సెక్టర్ బేస్ కూడా లేకపోవడం జరిగింది ఇండియాలో. రైట్? సో బై 1947, if you look at Indian economy, the position of Indian economy was very poor. Neither we have good production levels, nor we have good agriculture sector, nor we have good industrial sector. Leave about service sector called IT, infrastructure అని IT అనేది కంప్యూటర్స్ అనే సిస్టమే లేదు. Computers were only from 1995 ఇండియాలో. రైట్? 1995 నుంచి కంప్యూటర్ జనరేషన్ స్టార్ట్ అయింది, గ్లోబలైజేషన్ నుంచి వస్తుంది కనుక. రైట్? So at that point of time, our agricultural sector was very poor, our industries were very poor. So slowly, our leaders, until 1964, it was Jawaharlal Nehru, again it was carried by Indira Gandhi, again Rajiv Gandhi, with few governments. So what they started is they started trying to implement increase agricultural sector and industrial sector. Right? Now, in order to increase agricultural sector and industrial sector, they have to follow some rules, the principles. And what is the principle that they followed? Socialistic principles. Majority of the thing is socialistic principles. Right? They even had some communist principles. Communist principles means maximum of the things will be owned by the community or by the so-called government. So, at the very nascent stage, we were there until 1947. Slowly, we implemented these principles through a topic called planning. I'll tell you what is planning on these things. Right? Planning ద్వారా we started growing, but unfortunately we couldn't grow because of various reasons. That I'll discuss in my next class. Right? So we didn't grow. By 1990s, we went for LPG reforms. In 1991, India went for LPG reforms. By this point of time, our agricultural sector didn't grow to that expected levels, and industries were also not grown to the expected levels. Hence, we went for LPG reforms. From LPG reforms onwards, slowly, computers used to dominate and IT sector used to dominate. As a result, we are very nascent at the agricultural phase. By the time of 2000 and by the time of 2005, IT sector dominated Indian economy. Without proper growth of agriculture, without the proper growth of manufacturing, we started growing in IT sector. Why we started growing in IT sector? Because our people were well educated in English, and we used to serve those countries who were developed already in agriculture and industries. Look at this. All the IT companies which are working in India, we are just business process outsourcing agencies. అంటే ఎవరి కోసం పని చేస్తున్నాం? ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ అన్ని బయట వాళ్ళవి. మన వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తుంటారు? వాళ్ళ ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేస్తుంటారు. మన ఇండియన్ ప్రాజెక్ట్స్ ఇంప్లిమెంట్ చేస్తుంటారు maximum. Right? So what does this mean? IT sector started growing and the IT sector started working for other countries. Though there was no agricultural base, manufacturing base, still we could achieve service sector base. ఎందుకు వచ్చింది సర్వీస్ సెక్టర్ బేస్ అంటే ఎవరైతే అప్పటికి బాగా చదువుకున్నారో కంప్యూటర్స్ అనేవి నేను చెప్పాను 1970 నుంచి మాత్రమే ఎవాల్వ్ అవుతూ వచ్చి 1990 అప్పుడు దే వర్ టేకింగ్ ఎ వెరీ స్మాల్ స్టెప్స్. టుడే ఇట్ హ్యాస్ బీన్ గోయింగ్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ బౌండ్స్, but they were taking a very small steps. At that point of time, we Indians, because of our skill set that we have, the strong Indians who are good at English, who are good at computers, they started going into this sector and they started dominating IT sector. Because of this, IT sector started growing. So this is one anomaly. Now, what I said earlier, if you want to grow in IT sector, you should have a strong agricultural sector, industrial sector, then you will go to IT sector. But in India, IT sector has flourished. Why it has flourished despite poor agriculture and industries? Because though our agriculture and industries are poor, we started IT sector which is contributing to already developed countries of agriculture and manufacturing, that is the European countries. Look, IT ఎవరి కోసం పనిచేస్తుంది? కెన్యా కోసము, లేకపోతే గాంబియా, నమీబియా వీరి కోసం పనిచేయవు. అమెరికా కోసము, యూరోపియన్ కంట్రీస్ కోసం పనిచేస్తున్నాయి. Right? Why they are working for that? Because they were self-sufficient in agriculture and industries. Now, so after LPG reforms, what happened in India is, though our agricultural sector and industrial sector is very poor, we started growing in tertiary sector. As I said, tertiary sector is highly skilled sector, and this was highly neglected. This was stagnant growth. As a result, what happened here is only those sections of population who are having the skill of computers started entering into this IT sector, and the rest of the people, they were stuck here. Government didn't focus on industrial development, agricultural development. As a result, ఎవరైతే skill లేదో semi-skilled people, unskilled people, they couldn't enter into service sector. As a result, in India, we started seeing rising unemployment from 1991 onwards. Not only this, why? దీనిపైన ఫోకస్ చేయకుండా దీనిపైన ఫోకస్ చేస్తా జరిగాం. నో ఐ సెడ్ యూ కెన్ ఫోకస్ ఆన్ దిస్, బట్ దిస్ కెన్ క్యాటర్ ఓన్లీ ఫ్యూ సెక్షన్స్. హై స్కిల్ ఉన్న పీపుల్ మాత్రమే సెక్టర్. నో, మెజారిటీ ఆఫ్ ద ఇండియన్స్ ఆర్ సెమీ స్కిల్, రైట్? విచ్ మీన్స్ ఇండియా కంప్లీట్లీ నెగ్లెక్టెడ్ ఇండస్ట్రియల్ ఫేజ్. వీ ఎంటర్డ్ ఇంటూ అగ్రికల్చర్, ఫ్రమ్ అగ్రికల్చర్ టు డైరెక్ట్లీ టెర్షరీ సెక్టర్. Secondary sector we left, manufacturing sector we left. So semi-skilled people, now they have become unemployed or they have become underemployed. నిరుద్యోగత అయినా ఉంది, లేకపోతే తక్కువ జీతాల కోసం పనిచేసే స్థాయిలో దీస్ పీపుల్ వర్ ప్రజెంట్. యాజ్ ఎ రిజల్ట్ దీస్ పీపుల్ వర్ ఫేసింగ్ unemployment problems. As a result, poverty started growing, and those people who have got into service sector, their money per capita income was increased and they started growing. As a result, the first difference or huge difference of the rich and the poor started growing from 1990s onwards. So the major impact of LPG reforms in India is huge inequalities, రైట్. అసమానతలు అనేటివి ఎక్కువైతే వెళ్ళాయి. ఎందుకు వెళ్ళాయి అంటే టెరిషరీ సెక్టర్ డెవలప్ అవ్వడం వల్ల. మరి టెరిషరీ సెక్టర్ డెవలప్ అవ్వడం వల్ల ఎందుకు అంటే సెకండరీ సెక్టర్ లేకపోవడం వల్ల. టెరిషరీ సెక్టర్ డెవలప్ అవ్వడం కంటే దాని బదులు సెకండరీ సెక్టర్ లేకపోవడం వలన అన్ఎంప్లాయ్మెంట్ అనేది జరుగుతూ ఉంది. దెర్ వాజ్ హ్యూజ్ లెవెల్స్ ఆఫ్ poverty, huge levels of unemployment. As a result, from 1995, if you look at the inequalities until 2022, there is no inequality. Inequalities started rising, and this has made inclusive growth quite impossible. The growth was not inclusive. As a result, inclusive growth started taking a back turn in India. Though LPG reforms has contributed for the growth of tertiary sector, our industrial sector and agricultural sector was stagnant. As a result, inclusive growth was not there, and there was no unemployment. There is increasing unemployment and increasing poverty levels in the country. This is the biggest impact of LPG reforms. However, our economy has grown. డబ్బులు మనకు వచ్చాయి కానీ అది it has not contributed for the growth of the citizens. ఎందుకు ఆ డబ్బులు ఎవరికైతే వచ్చాయో కేవలం కొందరి హ్యాండ్స్లో మాత్రమే ఉండిపోయింది, రైట్. From that day onwards, we started seeing this inequalities, right. Now, why this inequalities has happened? Because India didn't go in a linear fashion. Primary sector, secondary sector, tertiary sector, quaternary and quinary. Each sector wise వెళ్ళలే. What we did is we started directly jumping from primary to tertiary. As a result, ఎప్పుడైనా సరే స్టెప్ బై స్టెప్ వెళ్ళాలి. ఎగురుకుంటే వెళ్తే ఏమవుతుంది, కింద పడితే పళ్ళు ఊరుతాయి, రైట్. As a result, we have broken our legs, and that is visible in the rising poverty, rising unemployment, rising inequality. So what they will ask in here is, so one biggest reason for unemployment in India is we do not have this industrial base. That we have to accept. That is the reason. When Narendra Modi government has come, they started focusing on one important scheme that is called Make in India. Why? Now, Make in India ante enti? India kuda oka industrial base, Germany lanti industrial base kavali manaku anesi Make in India program ane teeskoni vacharu, right. But Make in India vachesi tiger, right. Tiger is the logo. But as Rahul Gandhi said, our tiger is sleeping, right. It is in an inactive phase, which means Make in India couldn't be successful. So one answer for unemployment is this one. And if you want to address unemployment in India, what you have to have, you should have a strong secondary sector. That is the thing that you should know. So normally what it is said is economies will grow from grains to jeans to jets. తినడానికి తిండి ఉండాలి, వేసుకోవడానికి బట్టు ఉండాలి, తర్వాత సర్వీస్ సెక్టర్కి వెళ్తాం. గ్రెయిన్స్ అంటే ఏంటి, అగ్రికల్చరల్ సెక్టర్. జీన్స్ అంటే ఇండస్ట్రియల్ సెక్టర్. జెట్స్ అంటే సర్వీస్ సెక్టర్. Normally, economies will go from grains, jeans and jets, but India has missed this jeans. We directly jumped from grains to jets. As a result, we are facing huge unemployment crisis in India because of missing secondary sector, right? This is one of the reasons. So, employment create cheyali anukunte, for answer writing, you can think in this direction also. Employment create cheyalante ఏ విధంగా చేయాలి? Grow industrial base, Make in India, Skill India, Stand Up India. ఇవన్నీ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ఎందుకు పెట్టారు? స్టార్ట్అప్ ఇండియా ఇవన్నీ ఎందుకు పెట్టారంటే ఇండస్ట్రియల్ బేస్ డెవలప్ చేయడానికి ఇండియా, రైట్. ఆర్ యూ అండర్స్టాండింగ్? So now that is the discussion. So where you can use this context, you can use in unemployment versus poverty. Now what is there for prelims? Prelims కి ఏముంది ఈ డిస్కషన్లో? ప్రిలిమ్స్కి ఏముంది అంటే, now they will ask what is the impact of LPG reforms in India. Impact of LPG reforms in India, very important question for UPSC prelims as well as APPSC prelims. Impact of LPG reforms in India is they have positive impacts as well as negative impacts. What is positive impact? One positive impact is growth rate increased. India could successfully overcome the so-called Hindu rate of growth. హిందూ గ్రోత్ రేట్ని ఓవర్కమ్ చేసాం. వాట్ ఈస్ దిస్ హిందూ గ్రోత్ రేట్? హిందూ గ్రోత్ రేట్ అంటే స్టాగ్నెంట్ గ్రోత్ రేట్, రైట్? దిస్ ఇస్ ఏ టర్మ్ విచ్ ఈస్ యూజ్డ్ బై ద వెస్టర్న్ ఎకానమీస్. హిందూస్ అంటే దే విల్ బి రెసిస్టింగ్ టు చేంజ్, రైట్? కన్జర్వేటివ్స్ అనేసి ఒక భావన ఉంది. కనుక స్టాగ్నెంట్గా అలానే ఉంటారు, వాళ్ళ పద్ధతులు అలానే ఉంటాయి, పెద్ద చేంజ్కి రీఫార్మ్స్ కోసం రారు అనేసి ఒక భావన ఉండేది, రైట్? దాన్ని ఏమంటామంటే హిందూ గ్రోత్ రేట్. అంటే ఏంది? అరౌండ్ అవర్ గ్రోత్ రేట్ అట్ దట్ పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్ వాజ్ అరౌండ్ 2.5 to 3% యాన్యువల్లీ. ఇది మాత్రమే ఉండేది, 2 to 3% గ్రోత్ రేట్ అనేది ఉండేది. సో దాట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ హిందూ గ్రోత్ రేట్. ఫ్రమ్ 1947 until 1990 అవర్ గ్రోత్ రేట్ వాజ్ హిందూ గ్రోత్ రేట్, అండ్ దిస్ హ్యాస్ కంటిన్యూడ్, right? So Hindu growth rate, India could successfully break this barrier of Hindu growth rate, and we started seeing increased growth rate. Our growth rate was around 8%, 11%. During the times of Manmohan Singh, we reached even 12% of GDP, right? Unfortunately, again, after this demonetization, after this sudden implementation of GST, and after this COVID-19, today we are reeling under a huge crisis of growth rate. That is a second concept, right? So one positivity is India has successfully overcome the growth rate. The second success is India has increased enormously in tertiary sector growth. Service sector అనేది ఇండియాలో గ్రోత్ చాలా బాగా జరిగింది, which means particularly IT industry started dominating. This is secondary thing. The third thing is a primary sector, service sector has become largest contributor for GDP. Service sector has become largest contributor to GDP. Growth rate increase అయింది, GDP increase అయింది. Growth rate increase అయిందంటే GDP increase అయిందని. What is growth rate? What is GDP? I'll discuss in my another class. So growth rate increase అయింది, IT sector increase అయింది. IT sector started becoming the largest contributor of GDP, and GDP has increased enormously. Nonetheless, it has its own negatives. What are these negatives? The first negative is, though there was growth, the growth was non-inclusive. Growth rate అనేది non-inclusive అయింది. Why non-inclusive? Unemployment started increasing, poverty level started a bit increasing. After this, there is poor growth or stagnant growth of agriculture and industries. Agriculture industries పెద్దగా ప్రభావం చూపలేకపోయాయి, right? This is the third disadvantage that you have, and inequalities started rising in the country. So these are the negatives. One more positive about this is the forex reserves of the country was increased enormously. What is forex reserves? You know, Hindu newspaper chadivinte they have given this. I'll discuss this later. Forex reserves were increased enormously, right? But these are the negatives. They will ask this question about what are the positives and what are the negatives of LPG reforms in India. Now these are the positives, these are the negatives, right? So this is the next topic, that is called reforms, impact of LPG reforms on India. There will be one question. So what I discussed today, I discussed about what is economics. It is going to connect less than 1 minute. It is going to disconnect. Please join. I'll take 10 minutes. You can complete this. Right. What we have covered so far. Meaning of economy.